I believe that compulsive thinking is the most pervasive, under the radar addiction that we all share. Because when you live your entire life striving and in pursuit of the next thing, you literally wire yourself to be incapable of enjoying the present. Isn't that fascinating? That life is always happening right now, in this very moment. Never out there in the future. And yet, somehow, we live most of it trapped in the past or in the future. And the past and the future, of course, we all know conceptually that are fictions, that they don't exist. And the good thing is that you can literally leverage your own mind to think deeply about this conceptually, to understand that this is right. So even if the mind is trapping you in living in the future or in the past, you can still resolve this through thinking itself. Like the mind itself can understand that thinking, like the past and the future, are concepts. This is easily understandable if you think about it, right? What do you mean they are concept? You might ask. Well, everything that you ever lived in your life, you lived it in the present. You never lived anything in the past or in the future as such, right? If you think about tomorrow, you think about tomorrow now. Always now. If you remember what you did yesterday, you do it now. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, not anytime, anywhere else than this moment. There will be a this moment, right? Every single time when you project yourself in the future or in the past. You always do it in the moment, in this moment. And this moment is a perpetual moment that never ends. And yet, it's always different. It's the only thing that is different, really. It's the only thing that is ever different. No two moments are alike, which is another thing to be fascinated about when you get bored. Because the preciousness of life, the gift of life, the beauty of life is in the fact that every single moment is unique. No two moments are alike. And you can spend literally your entire life chasing the next moment, a better one, which unfortunately is just an illusion. It doesn't exist. We can anticipate them because this is how the brain works. The brain is a projection machine. It predicts also what comes next based on previous exposure, right? This is how memory works. We understand some things based on how the brain encoded similar past experiences. Past experiences, they always happen in the present, but they get integrated as this artifact, right? As being in the past. Most of you might think, okay, this is too philosophical, this is too abstract of a concept, this doesn't have any practical implications. Believe me, it takes me a great deal of energy, in a way, to find the means to transmit the importance of this in a way that can be easily understood. with enough gravity ultimately, that breaks the shell of the mind in which you are discarding this concept as being too impractical. But there is nothing more practical than this. Because understanding this core fundamental principle of life and reality gives you the means to actually own the moment. Not in the sense that you can control it. Own it in the sense that you realize its importance and the importance of how you engage with it. Because how you engage with this moment is the most important thing you can do. Because even if there will be, I think, a significant enough number of moments like this one expecting you in the so-called future, you have no guarantee really. There might be a lot, there might be not too many. And reflecting at the finitude ultimately of such moments, I think it's such an important thing to not take things for granted anymore and to actually be grateful for everything. So if you realize that this moment is everything there is, how would you live your life different? Would you keep everything in the same kind of attitude and you will continue to rush through them towards something better in the future? Towards this hypothetical better future that never really comes, because if you are truthful with yourself, you accomplished enough in this life to realize that there is no perfection, there is no there is no end in terms of aspirations that you can have, in terms of goals that you can achieve, in terms of successes that you can have, like worldly success, material, financial, like objectual, factual, right? There is no end to that. So when is enough enough? When is it that you can all of a sudden say, look, now it's good. I can be happy, right? I mean, do you think that will happen by magic? That happiness is something that you can strive for or fight for and sacrifice for? Happiness is the most basic human right. The only problem with happiness is that it's not something you can pursue. It's something that you can claim and embrace and welcome and be grateful for, because it's already here. It's already here in this seemingly boring and uninteresting moment in which hopefully you are watching this video. I am happy. This is happiness. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Why should it be different? Why should I need something more than this in order to be happy? I don't. You don't. But we are so unused to hitting the pause button and enjoy a seemingly unimportant moment like this, that whenever you try to do it, your mind jumps right in and forces you to think about what comes next, about something more exciting, more thrilling, right? Something that gives you some outcome, a plan that you might have to do in order to, get something which is more interesting, of course, than just contemplating at the nature of reality and so on. But of course, that's the exact same game that you've been played that you've been played. Yes, you've been played by this game, and you've been playing this game your entire life. And according to statistics, most people are unhappy. So if you got to this point of being unhappy and you've tried this way of being, right, of thinking about stuff, of planning, of doing always, of striving, of always pushing forward, of always pursuing the next thing, of always not being satisfied with what you have, with always not having everything enough. And you've played this for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and you're still unhappy. Wouldn't it be reasonable to try a different strategy? I don't know, I'm just asking. Wouldn't it be an interesting strategy to think about this game being rigged, this game being played against you? And I'm not talking like about some sort of conspiration, right? This is how the human brain works. We are being pushed forward. We are being wired in a biological sense to pursue the next thing, to get more resources, to accumulate more stuff, because that kind of pursuing and accumulation of resources was more conducive to our survival in the past, right? The more things you had, the more food you had, the better shelter, the more material you had in order to protect you, to acquire food and ensure your survival. Of course, the better it was. But that kind of way of working is not really conducive to happiness anymore these days, right? Like, in comparison to 1,000 years ago, we live in incredible abundance. I mean, our ancestors 1,000 years ago, if they were to look at us today with everything that we have, with all this comfort and all this sufficiency in the end that we have, and see us so sad and unhappy, they would be definitely more sad and unhappy than us, because this is their legacy, right? This is what humanity ended up being. It's so unfortunate, because ultimately this unhappiness with what you have now is the source of progress in a way, right? We owe our progress and the point in our evolution where we are today to those people who never accepted enough as a concept, who always pushed forward, who always wanted more. And this very ambition took us here, with the price, of course, of them living their whole life unhappy, not sufficient, right? In a state of never enoughness, if you want. And that's not fair, right? Because every single individual has the right to be happy, in my opinion. It's, again, like a core human freedom. It's a core human right to be happy. So my whole mission in this life is to find a way in which I can help myself and people, because I learn things for myself and then I know that I'm not special. I'm just like everyone else, living in this imprisonment of the mind of trying to move forward and push and get the next thing and be more ambitious and more and strive more, and help people like me to navigate this tension between continuing to be ambitious, because I don't think there is a problem with that, of wanting more, of proving to yourself that you are capable of more, and yet enjoying the journey as you do it, right? Because people are always at an extreme. It's very difficult to find this middle way. And I say middle way, I'm not saying the average, right? Not the average, don't have aspirations, just, give up on doing interesting things just because it's not worth it. I say middle way in which you can be at both extremes and oscillate between these two extremes, ideally as fast as possible in discrete units, right? So be extreme on the side of pursuit, like full head on, fully engaged, doing purposeful work on a mission that you find yourself in and you want to be in that mission. And at the same time, be completely at peace and relaxed with everything you are doing, right, while in pursuit. Not be completely caught in the rush of achievement, but also not become lethargic and disinterested, non-interested, and disengaged. So this complete engagement and complete relaxation, I don't think they can happen, of course, in the exact same time, right? There are moments in which you have to be fully engaged. But there has to be some sort of background awareness of this moment being ultimately the most important thing while in this pursuit. So there is this kind of high-level consciousness, if you want, in which you observe yourself as a human striving and pursuing, but never at the expense of your momentary consciousness and awareness. Never lose yourself completely in the game of pursuit. Always come back to the preciousness of this moment and honor this moment in priority before anything else. And if you can live life like that, I find it to be the best of both worlds. Because you can appreciate then a moment of silence, of stillness, of pause, of things not happening in the traditional sense, right? The being aspect of being a human. You can enjoy that. And you can also do what a human being is by default doing, right? Thinking, planning, executing, learning. But you can be in both worlds. You are not trapped only in the execution, only in the doing, only in the striving. You are not always thinking about stuff. You are not always in your mind. But you are also not always just, this enlightened, this stereotypical enlightened person, like meditating the whole day in the cave, right, in the Himalayas or something. I think that's not practical in our modern day society, right? So it has to be both at the same time. Because those people in the caves, clearly they are happier than we are in the modern society, for sure. And yet, that's not a functional way to exist in a modern society. As someone who contributes to the economy, as someone who is a parent, who has responsibilities, you have to do stuff, of course, you have to do them. And yet, how can you do them while staying fully awake and aware about the preciousness, again, of this moment? How can you jump between practicality and philosophy? How can you be, like in my case, both an engineer and a philosopher? I would like to give you a simple answer to that. But there is no simple answer to that. For good or for bad, right? The answer to that comes not at the end, but along the way of your own conscious willingness to become someone like that. To not be okay with trading your moments, your moment, right? Your life now for your life of tomorrow. Because that's a trade that you will realize at some point it's not worth trading. You did it your whole life, but at some point you realize that it was not worth it. And once you realize that this is not a worthy trade, you will start to think about how you can actually do it. How can you continue to progress in your life? How can you still have good results, achieve the things that you desire according to your goals, right? Ideally, more purposeful goals, not purely material. And at the same time, how you can really enjoy living, how you can be present as many moments as possible, right? Which again, there are no more moments, it's just this moment. But we always forget this, me including, of course. I always forget that there is just this moment, but I remember occasionally, and then I come back. And I just appreciate the beauty of it. I enjoy then going back in the stillness of this moment without pushing, without striving. And I find an implicit balance and this middle way that I'm talking about by oscillating between these two extremes, right? Pushing and then also releasing the push and being in the present, still absolutely okay with how things are, even if they are a bit crazy, even if it's a bit chaotic. I realize that that chaos is just a symptom of my mind engaging with it. It's just me being caught in the flow of happenings, right? Not having this kind of detached perspective where I can have the awareness of me being trapped in that flow. And this kind of momentary detachment is the so-called waking up moments, waking up from the dream of happenings, from the dream of life, where everything is always happening and you don't have a moment of release, right? You don't have a moment of calm, of composure, in which you can reflect at what's happening because you are in it. You're always caught in it. When you don't accept anymore this kind of bad trait that you're doing, of always sacrificing this moment for a hypothetical future better one, and you want to actually enjoy this one as it is, you will begin a process of your own transformation, a conscious transformation that likely will never end. Because you will discover a different way of living by discovering yourself, by learning about yourself. Right? The message that is core to this kind of Eastern philosophy and Greek philosophy, like know thyself, know about yourself, know who you really are, not just the descriptive quality of who you are, like a deep reality of who you are. When you investigate that, on that investigation, you will also learn how to live life, I would say, better, in a state of gratitude. And that different perspective will give you the energy and the clarity to engage with difficult moments in your life because you have a new perspective. You are not always operating from the noise, from the chaos. You are not always caught in the rush. You have this occasional detachment, not emotional detachment, but disengagement, and you see how things always are happening, and that will never end. But you can also see that everything is always perfect in itself, because that's the moment, right? That's the footprint of that moment, and each moment is different again. And that's the beauty of it. You can always learn something new. You can always be surprised and amazed by that moment, and just welcome it and allow it to be as it is. It's a nice thing. I wish you luck.